Amena Bakr, Deputy Bureau Chief and Chief OPEC Correspondent at Energy Intelligence. Getting all excited, Amena. Get to put on your big woolly sweater off to Vienna. The lovely Christmas markets and OPEC back in action. A week away from that meeting, Amena, how do you think OPEC Plus will be digesting $80 Brent?
Good morning, Sean. Yeah, really good question. I mean, that's something we're checking on a daily basis. You know that there were reports earlier that the group might be easing the cuts by 500,000, but increasingly, as we see the price drop, the possibility of that becomes more and more remote. I know that there was a denial right away. However, I mean, just given the current environment, you would think that, I mean, they have two options, either to keep things as is, no change to the current pact, or consider a deeper cut. As I understand, for the time being, there is no proposal being discussed, a single proposal by the ministers. Maybe they're waiting a few days ahead of the actual meeting to discuss it. But those are the two things they need to consider. We still have a lot of question marks on the impact of the sanctions. Will the US release more stocks? So much uncertainty. So to wait and see is a good approach, but also to take a preemptive action and perhaps deepen the cuts would be a viable option, I would say.
Fundamentals do inform sentiment. I do agree with Andy Levin in the room, and so I do challenge Omar a bit on that. Ultimately, fundamentals do matter, and they certainly matter to OPEC Plus. And they will be looking at curtailing supply as their option for challenging this move in prices to the downside, whether it's fear or greed that's sending them to $80 a Brent. Certainly OPEC Plus are going to do what they can, as they call it, to balance the market. Ultimately, will they consider the market to be currently unbalanced?
Well, we saw already, Sean, in the last OPEC report, they did revise demand downward for both this year and 2023. So they are seeing weaker demand. And how they respond to that, I mean, it's still unclear. We need to kind of wait and see. But I do agree with Omar to some extent. I mean, yeah, these markets, it's a very, very volatile environment, and sentiment is everything. So yes, they look at OPEC has to look at the fundamentals, but they also understand market sentiment. And that's why they need to keep alive the idea of signaling to the market, even if action is taken. I mean, Sean, we've been seeing that the cuts happening right now, there's an over-compliance to a huge degree. So, I mean, things don't add up. It's all on paper. And there's just sentiment. It plays a big role in today's market, and OPEC Plus understand that.
Amena, does OPEC Plus care about the price cap? Will it be a factor? I mean, in a way, the surprise on some level is that they didn't change the date of their meeting in December 4th, where maybe on the 6th or the 7th or something, they may have more clarity on the different factors. Your thoughts of what impact it's having in their decision making?
No, of course it's going to factor in, Sean. And I mean, we've already seen, we expected the EU to make a decision on the caps last week, and they're still stalling. And there was an even ongoing joke within the market that they need ministers from OPEC Plus to sort them out, have these half-an-hour meetings where things get done. So it seems like the debate is still going. And as Omar mentioned, that the ranges we're hearing now is the $65 to $70, which is a joke, which is, I mean, still, I mean, Russia is selling its oil to China and India at these prices. There is no change. And if they go for, I mean, if they go for a lower range, nobody really knows what Russia's reaction. We did hear from Novak. He said two things. If the price caps are implemented by certain countries, they will no longer ship crude to those countries, and they might even shut in production. I mean, just from a report that we did a month ago at Energy Intelligence, we expected between the EU sanctions and the US price caps that Russia would have difficulty exporting around 1.2 million barrels a day of crude and condensate. That's the average. I've heard higher ranges of 2, even 3 million barrel per day losses from Russia. But who knows at this point? Does anyone really have certainty on what will happen? So that's why I'm thinking that OPEC Plus, having their meeting on the 4th, perhaps they would opt to keep things as is, just see how things play out with the caps, with the sanctions, and then make a decision later on. And it doesn't, I mean, I know that they've reversed now the decision of like having these monthly meetings, but they could call for an extraordinary meeting at any point in time. So that gives them a lot of flexibility.
Looking to next week, we have, you've sort of signaled in your earlier comments the idea of this preemptive potential by OPEC Plus. Saudi Minister of Energy, he has been in a preemptive posture for some time now. One would think, one would sort of at least put that into the thinking that sub $80 Brent would trigger more preemptive action. Your thoughts for next week's meeting?
Yeah, sure, Sean. I agree with you. I would say that Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman is very cautious in general. And before they see any clear signs that demand is improving, news coming out of China, etc., easing the lockdowns and the impact of the market, I mean, they won't make any brash decisions to reverse the pact that's currently in place until December 2023. So I expect them to continue this very, very, very cautious path, because they don't want to land into a situation like we had in 2020. The memory is still very fresh, and they don't want their budgets to be again exposed to this huge collapse. So to avoid that, I would say that yes, they will remain very cautious, and that opens the options of taking further preemptive actions.